and I borrowed $9,900 from a line of credit to buy as much of it as I could afford, because I knew that I was going to make an absolute killing. My name is Ashley Cotter-Cairns, and I am a retired comic book dealer. Now you might be wondering, why am I retired? Why did I become a comic book dealer? And why on earth am I shooting this video? I was shocked when I logged into my YouTube channel recently and discovered that I still have over 6,000 subscribers to our old content, even though some of my comic books doesn't exist as a content creator anymore, and we haven't uploaded a video for over 4 years, and yet we're still getting subscribers, we're still getting views. So I figure like a complete lack of gratitude to not create content anymore. And I have this story about my journey that's been kind of burning a hole in my heart for a long time. There are loads of great stories. My journey from complete idiot who couldn't grade a comic book to save his life and lost $30,000 in year one of his trading, to successful entrepreneur who exited the company for 7 figures in 2022. In my life, I've had several careers, mostly freelance stuff. So I've been an eBay seller since the year 2000. I actually didn't set off on eBay to start as a business. Really what happened was my mum called me one day and said, "I'm moving house, please come and pick up your crap in the attic." So I climbed up the attic ladder and almost killed myself, electrocuting myself on a light socket, which I'll get to another time. Tune in, please subscribe. The upshot of all that was that I ended up with 5 or 6 boxes of crap that my mum had been looking after for me in the attic, and it was mostly toys and games from my childhood, from like age 7 to age 15. I was a collector. I've always been a collector of something, so I had all this stuff in the attic. My mum didn't want me to leave it with her because she wouldn't want to move it, so I just carted it back to my place and just left it in the spare room. And someone was chatting to me, and I was saying like, "Oh, you have any idea what to do with old Dungeons and Dragons stuff? I just got all this stuff lying around." And he said, "Have you heard of eBay?" And eBay had just launched in the UK, and they weren't charging anything at all. So I go on eBay and just start looking to see what's on there. And I was really amazed at the prices people were paying for some of the crap that I already owned. I just started blasting through all the stuff that my mum had asked me to pick up. I had sold everything for so much money, and we're not talking millions or anything here, but I was really kind of broke at the time. I didn't have a job, and then I just thought, why don't I buy more of this? So I just started putting ads in the local paper. Shows my age. We had a local newspaper in our town, and I would go to yard sales, although in England we don't call them yard sales. That's another story. And I would just buy more of exactly the same stuff that I just tried to get rid of, and I ended up filling up my entire apartment with more and more stuff. I was so enchanted by the idea that you could just buy stuff that nobody wanted and then sell it to people that did want it. Fast forward to 2012, I decided to become a comic book dealer based on pure instinct. It was like I was creating content-rich websites, but basically all I did was research a niche, find keywords that were related to the niche, and publish articles for free on the website so anyone could read them. And I'd done this 20-30 times. I built a nice little income for my family and I. Comic books were just going to be another part of that empire. It was supposed to be a website where people would come and research the price of comics and go to eBay and buy comics, and it was called Sell My Comic Books. It's owned by eBay indirectly, which is really ironic, but I'll get to that later. So what happened was, people would come to my website after typing in value of Spider-Man comics or Batman or whatever, Batman comic book prices or whatever. They'd come to my website, and the original goal was I would just send them through a link to eBay and they would maybe buy something, and it sort of worked, and I could see the potential. And so what I decided to do was sell and close everything else I was working on, let them just make their passive income and focus completely on the comic book website. Now, this was a fantastic decision in hindsight, but at the time it was a big risk. The other websites were making something like £3 a month, so it was doing okay. £3 a month isn't bad for passive income. That's literally just updating content, getting clicks on ads, selling some digital stuff. I mean, that's really decent. But so why did it turn out to be such a good decision to focus purely on the comic book business and to put all my energy and effort into that? I got lucky. Let's just say I got lucky. But something really important happened in 2012 in the world of comic books. Disney released the first Avengers movie in 2012. And I remember thinking, wow, I'm such a fan of comic book superheroes that I always have been since I was a kid, when I started watching the reruns of the Adam West and Burt Ward Batman TV series with my friend Julian Bamford. He and I would sit there after school, probably eating a jam sandwich and watching Batman. That's how I got into superheroes. So when the Avengers movie first came out in 2012, I was like, oh, this is awesome. You'd had Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies were in the early 2000s. Lots of Batman stuff, like from 1989, the Tim Burton Batman movie, which I was so excited about. Also a big Prince music fan, so the fact that Prince did the soundtrack for that was just like a double whammy for me. It was like the perfect storm. There had been superhero movies before 2012, obviously. CGI was so good that there was nothing they couldn't do. If you could imagine it, they could create it. You could criticize the movie for lots of things, but you could not criticize the movie for lacking scope. Like it had, there was a lot going on in that movie. Almost like the way that the Tim Burton Batman movie made Batman grow up from the original experience of Batman being like Adam West and Burt Ward, rest in peace, Adam West, to 1989 when you had Jack Nicholson as the Joker, and it was so dark. That movie was so dark. The Avengers movie, the first Avengers movie, was also a very dark movie. If you watch it again, most of the scenes are shot underground or at night, and it's quite a dark movie. Some of the concepts too are quite dark. Like it's quite an adult superhero movie. So I think that's why the first Avengers movie was so successful, is because in the way that the Batman TV series was great for kids and adults could sit and watch it, the way that Pixar movies are, really, they work for two audiences. The Avengers movie was primarily an adult product, and kids could sit and watch it because, you know, Captain America's in it and Thor's in it, and there's lots of fights and things like that. But really, it's an adult product. It was an adult targeted film. And then, more exciting than that, Disney released details of all the other things they're going to do next. So what you created there was, Disney had created this demand, right? So they created this anticipation of future content. They created a really good first film, and they teased all the other stuff that's going to be in it. I wouldn't say they were particularly true to comic book stories. Sometimes they took liberties with stories, but they were very aware of comic book culture, and they were particularly careful about making sure that real fans of real comics would get a lot out of the movies. It wouldn't just be shot for just anybody. They created this first plank of a giant bonfire, and they sprayed it all down with CGI gasoline and tons of fantastic acting and campy fight scenes, but also very well produced, directed and written stuff. Then they chucked on a bunch of fuel. Like, all these other films are coming out too, and I'm going to tease some of them in the end scenes and the post-credit scenes. And by the way, Stan Lee, who is like the world's greatest comic book creator, we're going to put him as a cameo in every single film. Like, it was just like this massive bonfire of demand they created. What happened to the comic book business as a result of that decision was just perfect. if you were a comic book dealer who had his finger on the pulse, or her finger on the pulse, during the 2012 to 2015 period. And this is why it worked for me. I went to my first comic book convention as a serious researcher, and it shouldn't really be a surprise in hindsight, but at the time I was so surprised. Obviously it's not going to be the same, is it? It's not going to be 50 middle-aged guys with 5,000 boxes of comics and those dividing walls at the back where they put the most expensive stuff on little shelves, and no one's going to have a website. It's not going to be like that. It's going to be much more sophisticated than that, right? And I would get their business cards. I had a little stack of them, so I bought a few things, but nothing too major. And then I went home and I started checking out their websites. I don't want to be too unkind, but they really looked like someone's 7-year-old nephew had made a WordPress site. They weren't even web savvy enough to create an affiliate account and make their link to eBay an affiliate account. So if anyone clicked through their website, which is very unlikely because the websites didn't have any actual content, but even if they had done, they wouldn't get any affiliate commission because they didn't put an affiliate link on their link to their website, their eBay store. These guys have absolutely no idea that the internet exists. So I saw an opportunity. I saw the opportunity was that somebody who maybe doesn't have the comic book dealing skills but has the web skills could take market share from somebody who has the comic book dealing skills and experience and customer base and all those things that they have, but doesn't have the knowledge of the web as a lead generation machine. I thought, well, at the very least, I can create an audience, and I can drive that audience to initially eBay and make some money from their habit of buying comic books. When I was at the comic book convention, I picked up a copy of the Overstreet comic book price guide. Surely no one would buy a stupid brick of a price guide and look at prices in a book that's updated once a year and think that was a good idea, with the internet being what it is. But sure enough, the Overstreet comic book price guide still existed, so I took it home. I was thinking to myself, who pays to advertise in the Overstreet price guide, and why? And what do they get from it? And does this actually make you any money? So what I did was I sat down, made a cup of tea, opened up the price guide to the market report section and got a spreadsheet, and I decided to make a note of every single comic that the advisors to the Overstreet price guide were advising people on, buying or selling, what's gone up, what's gone down, what's hot, what's not. So I made this giant list. I started there. Stop me if you know the term key issues. So what I was essentially doing was taking all these advisors' ideas and condensing it into a list of key issues that I would try and buy. And it was really fun. It was actually very helpful because there are lots of keys I didn't know were keys. Everyone knows the first appearance of Batman, but do you know the first appearance of the Teen Titans? Or do you know the first appearance of Deathstroke the Terminator? Or do you know the first appearance of Hydro Man? It became useful later on to know the first appearance of Hydro Man, but for me, as a complete beginner, that's what I focused on. And as I was making this list, I saw the power that these advisors had. But as a fan of Tim Ferriss, and if you've ever read The 4-Hour Workweek, you know what I'm talking about. This guy changed the way a lot of people thought about entrepreneurship and work even. He had a section in The 4-Hour Workweek about creating trust in your audience, and the way that you create trust in your audience. If somehow your business or product or something is featured in a very famous publication like the New York Times or the Washington Post or something, putting a logo at the bottom of your page that shows the New York Times or the Washington Post, like a section as featured in, is a massive boost to trust. In the world of comic book dealers, there really was only one trust signal that made any sense. and that was to become an Overstreet comic book price guide advisor. And even the people who were Overstreet comic book price guide advisors in 2012 weren't telling the world that they were Overstreet comic book price guide advisors. You had to buy the Overstreet comic book price guide and read the market report section or there's a little gallery of the advisors in the back of the book if you're really interested in seeing terrible pictures this big of people. Why weren't these people waving this giant flag that the only trust marker that makes any sense at all in this business? I'm one of them, one of 150 advisors in the world. So once I started to take comic books seriously, I recognized that I could get a huge advantage if I could become an Overstreet price guide advisor, because then people would at least say, wow, this 50-year-old publication has recognized his expertise enough to make him an advisor. I don't know how much that was a part of my success. I don't know if that was a real factor or not, but it can't have hurt. Once I made the decision I wanted to be a comic book dealer, I made it my priority to become an Overstreet price guide advisor. And by 2017, I was actually in the Overstreet price guide every year, writing a market report. I created fun, interesting, and content-rich market reports. A lot of the advisors, you can tell the ones that don't like to write the market reports, and they kind of dash off something that at the last minute, which doesn't tell you very much. It's just a little bit like a confessional. But the good market reports actually give you information. They tell you what's actually going on in the market, and they give you ideas of what to buy and sell. So I tried to make mine like that. But we're getting far ahead here. So we're still in 2012, and I want to tell you the story of my very first comic book collection that I traveled to buy, and I borrowed $9,900 from a line of credit to buy as much of it as I could afford, because I knew that I was going to make an absolute killing from this guy, because he didn't know what he had. He had posted his collection in the weirdest location. There weren't even any photos. Like, I can't believe he sold any comics at all. But my God, I was going to get in the car with my friend and go down there and buy them all and make an absolute fortune. And if you want to hear what happened, please tune in to the next episode of Confessions of a Comic Book Dealer. So please subscribe, like this video so Google knows that I'm doing a good job after all this time. I would love it if you have friends who are into comic books and think this content would actually be helpful to them, or they'd enjoy it. Please recommend it to them. I will see you next time. Thanks for listening. Bye.